Soul as cause. We now turn to Aristotle's treatise on the soul, which we refer to by the Latin translation of its title, De Anima. Soul, for Aristotle, is the principle of life. So all living things, plants as well as animals, have souls. This is not to say that they have some immaterial stuff that animates them and then flies off to another realm when they are dead, as Plato and others had supposed. Rather, he identifies a living thing's soul with its form, something that is intimately bound up with its material body. He says, we need not ask whether the soul and body are one, any more than we need to ask this about the wax and the shape in it. Just what the soul is a question his predecessors have struggled with, Aristotle tells us in Book 1, as he surveys and criticizes their views. But they all agree on one basic point, which Aristotle also endorses. The soul is a principle or cause of motion. And this makes sense if we take motion broadly enough to include all the changes or activities that are distinctive of living things. At the most basic level, there is nutrition and growth. This is what plants do. At the next level, there is perception and locomotion, which animals engage in. And at the next level, rational animals, there is thinking and reasoning, which human beings do. When we or any other living creature engages in any of these life activities, growing, perceiving, moving around, thinking, it is our soul that is the cause. Aristotle and his predecessors agree on this. But what sort of thing is the soul, and how does it cause these activities? By and large, the Presocratic naturalists propose that the soul is a particular kind of body. The atomist Democritus proposed that it is a mass of tiny spherical atoms that are always in motion. These circulate inside the body of the living creature and cause changes in it by pushing, pulling, and impact. Aristotle makes fun of this by saying it's like the fairy story about the enchanter Daedalus, who set the wooden statue of Aphrodite in motion by pouring in quicksilver. The soul, conceived of in this way, moves the body of the living thing by pushing, pulling, and impact. It is a moved mover, that is, something that causes motion by itself being in motion. Even the immaterial soul invoked by Plato is in motion and moves the body by transferring its own motion to it. Think of the world soul driving the orbits of the celestial spheres in the Timaeus. Now, Aristotle thinks all this is a very problematic way of characterizing the principle that animates living bodies. If the soul moves the body by itself being in motion, then we have to answer a prior question. What moves the soul? And then it doesn't seem like the soul is the source of the body's motion after all. Whatever moves the soul would have that status. Now, Democritus avoids this problem by proposing that the soul is always in motion. But then it becomes difficult to explain how the soul causes the body to come to rest, which surely is something else a soul does. Stopping to sit down is as much a life activity as getting up to walk around. Aristotle's own view is that the soul is not the sort of thing that can be in motion. It is the form of a natural body. What this means, that soul is form, means pretty much the same as Aristotle's claim that an animal or plant's form is its nature. Now, nature for Aristotle is an internal principle of change and stability, and this sort of principle, we now know, is an efficient cause, or a mover. So in effect, Aristotle's view is that a living thing is moved by its form. But how could something's form move it? Certainly not by pushing and pulling, by being in motion itself, since form is not the sort of thing that can be in motion. It is bodies like earth, air, fire, and water that can be in motion, and can impart their motion to other bodies. Still, unless they are arranged in the proper structure and proportion, their motions won't yield complicated life activities like nutrition and growth or perception. The crucial causal role of form is like that of structure. Even if ultimately it is bodies like earth, air, fire, and water that are doing the pushing and pulling at the microscopic level, the structure in which they do the pushing and pulling plays a crucial causal role in determining the result. Thus, form is what Aristotle would call an unmoved mover. Now, in many cases, form isn't simply a matter of structure, but the same point holds. When the skilled builder is constructing the house, the builder is the efficient cause, or mover. But strictly speaking, it is the builder's skill that is the mover, Aristotle tells us. So while the builder is hammering and sawing away and engaging in various bodily motions that produce the house, his skill as a builder is playing a crucial causal role in the process, but not by contributing an extra movement to the process, like Daedalus's quicksilver. Now to get back to the soul. Just as the building skill is what makes someone a builder, that is, it's the form of a builder, the capacities for nutrition and growth, for perception and locomotion, and for thought are what make something alive. These capacities, Aristotle calls them first actualities, constitute the form of a living thing. While they are exercised through various movements in the body, their causal role is not as another movement added to the rest. In cases like this, as in cases where form is structure, form is an unmoved mover. To sum up, soul, as Aristotle conceives of it, is a cause of movement, a mover, but not by itself being in movement. It causes movement in the way a form does. Thus, soul, for Aristotle, is an unmoved mover. Now, the notion of an unmoved mover has a very important role to play in Aristotle's cosmology. That's a topic that will bring us back to the physics, to Book 8 of that work.